Second Holmes by Grant Eustace, starring Peter Egan as Stamford Holmes and Jeremy Nicholas as Dr. Watson. Episode 4, The Case of the Shadowed Minister.
Last, good King Wenceslas last night out on the feast of Stephen.
Got a light, Squire.
Appalling manners people have. Drunk, I suppose.
Here, just a minute, Squire.
Please get out of my way. I do not converse with people who skulk in doorways on dark evenings.
I only asked for a light, Squire. Don't get shirty.
I am not a squire. Dreadful expression. And anyway, I don't smoke.
But as a gentleman, you always carry matches, Watson.
Holmes!
Not so loud, and move this way. We're very conspicuous by this lamppost.
Gave me quite a start. Well, I hadn't expected to find you here.
Nor are you. What's that you're carrying?
Why, it's a... You're joking.
Even my limited sense of humour could evolve a better joke than that.
No.
I can see it's a tree.
Well, good heavens, is that all? A tree? I do believe you mean it. Can you deduce nothing else?
You wish to give me a little test, even in this poor light. Very well, hold it up, then. It's a specimen of North Temperate coniferous genus Pinus, 2 feet 7 inches high. It is sustained an attack by Hylergus pinaperda, which you may know better as a pine chafer.
Sorry, what's a pine chafer?
Hylergus pinaperda.
Oh.
But there's little lasting damage, and it's otherwise healthy. You obtained it from a careless Greek ex-fisherman who smokes a pipe and most probably sells it from a barrow.
Oh, Holmes, you've been following me.
Certainly not. I don't want people to talk.
But you couldn't possibly deduce all that.
The roads are wet and slushy, and this tree has recently been splashed by a passing vehicle. So it was on a stall close to the roadside, not in a shop.
Yes.
This fragment of ash on the roots from a distinctive and rather unpleasant pipe tobacco flavoured by fishermen in the Greek islands.
You see, I'm always saying you owe it to the world to update your grandfather's monograph on tobacco ash.
Yes, you are. Also, it's hardly improbable the man is an ex-fisherman, or he wouldn't be selling trees in the West End of London.
Yes, take your break. Now, what about the careless?
You are punctilious in holding the tree upright, but it has been trailed on the ground. You can see where that branch is a trifle bare and muddy, and the one next to it has had the end broken off.
So it has.
I don't fancy I've omitted anything of great note.
No, apart from the most important, of course.
Really?
Holmes, this is a Christmas tree.
Ah, is that what it is?
Christmas, Holmes, the season of peace and goodwill towards men.
Clearly a view not universally shared.
Oh, really? Oh, you mean you're on a case? Yeah, so that's why you're dressed as a tramp.
A reasonable deduction. Come on, Watson. There's nothing more to be gained here. Time I went home for a bath and a change of clothes.
Yes.
That's better. I rather overdid the smell element of the disguise this time.
Yes. So, what's all this about, Holmes?
Well, from that tone of voice, you believe you have the makings of another fat check.
Oh.
You'll be disappointed you won't be able to publish this one.
Oh. You mean it's pretty sensitive, eh? Royal liaison, perhaps. Something that threatens the fabric of society.
Not only do you write for the Sunday newspapers, Watson, you appear to read them as well. It's nothing so melodramatic.
Political scandal, perhaps.
Political, yes. Scandal, no. I've been approached by Waterfield.
Who?
The Minister of State at the Defence Ministry.
Aha! Defence, eh? The national interest at stake.
Watson, if you persist in embellishing the story before you even know the facts, I shall say nothing further.
Oh, sorry, Holmes.
Now, the Minister sent me a note to say he believed he was being followed and asked me to look into it.
Oh, that's odd.
Not at all. Thanks to you, I have a reputation for dealing with matters of this kind.
No, I mean, it's odd he came to you rather than use official channels. I wonder why.
The man is somewhat taciturn. He even managed to compress the whole of his letter to me into 19 words. Unsurprisingly, therefore, he's given me no reason.
Well, must be something personal or sinister.
Shortly after the Minister's letter arrived, I received this.
An anonymous note. Mr. Holmes, by now you will have received a letter from a government minister. Ignore it. It can do no good to you or him if you attempt to take the matter any further. Most promising.
You think so?
Of course. Your antagonist has shown his hand. There's always a great deal to be deduced from anonymous notes.
Such as?
The paper.
The market leader in domestic writing paper, available at any stationer's.
Ah. Oh, then the typewriting.
The most common electric office typewriter. It would not be unreasonable to suppose there are at least 50,000 in London alone. Tracing the one with a slight fault in the lowercase t would be a most tedious undertaking.
Well, the postmark on the envelope is...
Central London.
Oh, just a moment. There's something wrong with all this. I found you out in the street already working on the case. I haven't had to persuade you to take it on.
For once, no.
Oh, so why have you?
Since you put me to the test with your much-abused Christmas tree, I think it's only fair that I should return the compliment.
Ah, right. Deduce it. The note warns you off. Now, the inevitable reaction to that from a member of the Holmes family would be to make you look into it, which you have. Ah! So the writer is not an antagonist, but someone who wants you to take the case.
Admirable, Watson.
Ah.
But incomplete.
Oh.
Anyone who could reason my first reaction as you have could reason my second.
Oh, could they?
It is too obvious that a warning note would provoke me to look into a case. It's plausible to assume that the writer of the note intends me to think it is too obvious, and thus not to pursue the case.
But you have pursued it.
That's because the writer did not wish me to.
Ah, I see.
You do?
Well,
it's a trifling little matter.
Pity.
This is something genuinely interesting.
Oh, really?
You've been at your health centre a good deal this week, Watson, so you haven't seen my model.
Model? Good grief.
Of the west coast of America.
Oh, I see, that sort of model.
It really is no good trying to study plate tectonics theoretically.
Take what?
The mobility of the Earth's surface, Watson. You see, this is the Gorda plate off Canada, and this is the Cocos plate off Central America. The difficulty is that to simulate movement between them and the North American plate, I need to write a very complicated program for the computer. You see? Well, I'm nearly there.
I knew when you bought that mini-computer it would divert you from your true vocation.
The nature of my true vocation is something we might differ about. You would think being X-directed would stop that ringing so often. Holmes? That is correct. If you must. No, I shall be here. My pleasure. I am too polite. It is not my pleasure.
Something new, Holmes.
The Minister's personal assistant, Alex Messenger, wants to call here urgently.
Messenger, eh? Pretty appropriate, eh? The winged messenger, Miss Mercury.
Oh, yes.
Well, the plot thickens, after all, by the sound of it.
I sincerely hope not.
But this Defence Ministry aspect is worrying, don't you think, Holmes? Possibility of involvement by foreign power and so on. Well, good Lord. That Bulgarian case.
Which one had you in mind?
The assassination. The man who was stabbed on Waterloo Bridge with an umbrella that had a poisoned ball bearing in
the minister is harmless, Watson. Why should the Bulgarians want him eliminated? In any case, if he is to avoid every man in London in December with an umbrella, he'd never get to work. Now, be a good chap and read the newspaper or something. I want to get on with this programming.
I'll go, Holmes.
Please do. 49,336.
Ah, there might be a little bit there. There's a bit of a problem here, Holmes. A young lady wants to talk to you, and you're expecting this messenger chap any minute.
Ask her in, Watson.
Oh, if you think it's all right. Oh, come in, would you, Miss...
Messenger, Watson.
What?
Dr. Watson, Alex Messenger.
Oh, I see. How do you do?
How do you do?
You might have told me, Holmes.
Please do sit down, Miss Messenger. Now, have you come to tell me why you wrote the anonymous note?
Good Lord.
You've known all along, I suppose.
Well, you do me too much credit. The writer of the note knew I'd received a letter from the minister. Indeed, seemed to have absorbed some of his cryptic style. Thus, it was logical to believe it came from someone close to him. But I was only certain it was you when I saw the ring on the little finger of your left hand.
Ring?
It was undoubtedly that which caused the indentations on the paper as you folded it.
Remarkable.
Commonplace. Now, your reason, Miss Messenger?
To prevent the minister making a fool of himself. You see, he feels he's going to be moved out in the next ministerial reshuffle.
Indeed.
So he's been casting around for something that might make him seem more important to the Prime Minister. One of the devices was to say he was being followed. Very difficult to disprove. And at the Defence Ministry, that carries with it all sorts of overtones of his activities being of interest to a foreign power and so on. Something the PM's very sensitive about, as you know.
What did I tell you, Holmes?
I thought I talked him out of it. And then I found out he'd written to you. So I wrote my note.
So that's all cleared up. I can get on with my programming. Good day, Miss Messenger.
Not at all, Mr. Holmes. You see, I realized today that the minister is being followed.
Yes, I know.
You didn't tell me that, Holmes.
I don't remember you asking.
But his life may be at risk after all.
I doubt it.
Oh.
The man followed the minister all day to his office, from his office to the house, to lunch at a busy restaurant.
That's when I noticed him, but I didn't see you.
Well, that's only to be expected. Then again when the minister was doing his Christmas shopping, which was when we met, Watson.
Yes.
If he wished the minister harm, he had ample opportunity today. I don't think there's anything I need get involved in.
You might be able to help me if you did, Mr. Holmes.
I should give up that approach, Miss Messenger. Holmes doesn't have a soft side.
I beg your pardon?
I was under the impression it was the minister who was being followed.
But I believe it might be on my account.
How do you mean?
I think the minister's wife is having her husband followed.
Good Lord, why?
To prove her suspicions about her husband's personal assistant.
Ridiculous. Why should she be jealous of you?
Well,
Watson, for a ladies' man, you can be remarkably tactless.
Well, of course I can see Miss Messenger is attractive and quite charming, and so on. But I mean, it's quite normal to find career women in politics or anywhere else for that matter.
that's the problem. It's not normal to Mrs. Waterfield.
Oh.
Woman's role is keeping the house and rearing the children while the breadwinner's away. Only since he became a minister, the breadwinner's been away rather too much for her liking, and at the same time he's got a female personal assistant, who clearly can't be trusted if she's 30 and still unmarried.
Oh, stuff and nonsense. Of course you may be right about Mrs. Waterfield's old-fashioned views, but I think this business of the minister being followed has a much darker side. It's too much of a coincidence that he's in the defence ministry.
Excellent.
Oh, you think so, Holmes?
I do believe I shall be able to produce an exact replica of the San Andreas Fault.
Holmes, we're discussing Miss Messenger's problem.
I don't see that she has one.
Then could you put my mind at rest?
Of course. How?
I have to go back to the constituency before the recess. Tomorrow, in fact. Since the minister's asked you to assist, you could come with me.
Oh, right.
Then you could see whether you feel Mrs. Waterfield is behind this.
I still think we'll find another solution. Well, it can't do any harm to start in the constituency. What do you say, Holmes?
I'd much rather finish my programming.
Please, Mr. Holmes, it's not far, only Norfolk.
Well, that's hardly an incentive. The people there take after their county, and the county's desperately flat.
You can't dismiss Norfolk like that, Holmes. It's too important to your family. Will we be going anywhere near Donnythorpe, Miss Messenger?
About 10 miles.
Ah, there you are, you see. That was the scene of Holmes's grandfather's very first case.
Oh, here we go again.
Well, anyway, Holmes, we can be there and back in 24 hours.
I can promise that. The Waterfield family has a lot of business interests in East Anglia, and I can call on the company aircraft if I need it.
Can you now?
Aircraft? I'm sure that's not necessary, but my car's only just down the
What
road.
sort of aircraft?
To be accurate, I should say helicopter.
Better still.
I'm sure there are perfectly good trains.
Could the pilot be persuaded to let me sit in the front?
I'm sure he could.
Well, perhaps we ought to consider whether one of us should
Then off
stay
to
in
Norfolk it
London.
will be. Hey, Watson?
Good God, my life insurance is up to date.
Only a few more minutes before we're there.
Thank goodness for that.
Not enjoying it, Watson?
It's a near certainty this vibration is going to give me vertebrae trouble.
Are you enjoying it, Mr. Holmes?
Very much. Fascinating to see Bernoulli's theorem in practice.
Whose theorem?
Bernoulli, distinguished family of Swiss mathematicians. Hello.
Something wrong?
I think, Watson, you might lean over here and take a look at the pilot.
Good Lord, he isn't ill, is he?
I noticed he was sweating somewhat, but now he seems to have passed out.
What? What? Who will fly this wretched helicopter then?
At the moment, the autopilot's doing an effective job.
Oh, good.
But if we're not just to fly around here till we run out of fuel, I shall have to take over.
You?
I didn't realize you were a pilot.
I'm not.
Oh,
The
Lord.
last 40 minutes have been most instructive. It all seems relatively straightforward.
Holmes, this can't be why.
Are you going to be able to bring round the pilot?
Not a hope. Look at those pupils.
Then unless you want to change places with me...
Heaven forbid.
That's the house up ahead. The helipad's the far side of the terrace.
But it's next to the building.
Yeah, it might be a fraction ambitious for a first landing.
What?
We'll try the field instead.
This is hopeless.
Pretty soggy, I imagine. But I think recovery of the helicopter must take second place to our survival.
We're not going to survive.
We won't if you keep shouting in my ear, Watson. Now, which direction is the wind?
Wind?
There's smoke coming from that end chimney.
Oh, so there is, thank you. We need to turn to head into it then. Now, Miss Messenger, it would be helpful if you would watch the rotor RPM, which is this gauge here. I shall be looking out, and Watson will have his eyes shut.
I certainly will.
Ignore the numbers, but let me know if the pointer goes into the green, which is too high, or... No, the green, which is too low, or the red, which is too high.
Oh, my God.
Mr. Holmes, the pilot usually insists we fasten our seatbelts before we land.
Then let us follow that good example.
Doesn't provide crash helmets, does he?
Everybody ready? Switch out the autopilot, then. And down we go.
Mrs. Waterfield, may I introduce Stamford Holmes?
You're responsible for this mess, I understand. They say they're going to need a crane to move that helicopter.
I'm afraid the landing was rather harder than I planned, but I'd assumed the cars would disperse as we approached rather than run towards us.
Really?
Mrs. Waterfield, Dr. Watson and I owe Mr. Holmes our lives.
If you hadn't come here, the incident would never have occurred.
I'm here at your husband's request.
Far be it for me, of course, to interfere with his work.
Oh, there you are, Holmes.
Mrs. Waterfield, this is Dr. Watson.
Looking much better.
No thanks to you.
Is the pilot so much better that you can afford to leave him unattended?
He isn't unattended, madam. Your local man has arrived. In fact, the pilot will be all right in a couple of days, but it was a very severe bout of food poisoning. The question is, was it an accident?
What?
Why should it have been deliberate?
The minister might have been travelling with us.
Why, in that case, I doubt Miss Messenger would have asked you to come as well.
Well, in fact, she did ask
Now, all
me
this
to
is
come.
getting very tiresome, and in any case, it's the minister's business, not mine, so if you'll excuse me...
Mrs. Waterfield, what about accommodation?
What about it?
Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson won't be able to get back to London at a reasonable time today, now that the helicopter's out of commission.
Well, you should have thought of that before you came all this way. I haven't touched the guest room my husband allocated you, of course. But all the other rooms are being prepared for the family coming here over Christmas. It's bad enough to think they're going to look out of the window at that helicopter thing lying there. I can't possibly upset the arrangements for the rooms.
Well, I'm sure even in Norfolk there must be somewhere acceptable for Watson and me to stay.
There's only the Mill House within about half an hour's drive.
Then the Mill House it is.
I don't think you should stay there.
Oh, why not?
Well, the name Holmes means only one thing.
Yes,
doesn't
I
it?
say so.
Well, you know what local people are like. They'll draw all the wrong conclusions.
I'll go with you. They know me there. In fact, I can stay there as well.
Well, I don't want to put you to any trouble if you've already got a room here.
I'm sure your company is more congenial than mine, Mr. Holmes. After all, you're a man.
So I am.
No doubt you need a car now to get to there. You'd better take the Range Rover, I suppose.
I have to modify my views a little, Miss Messenger.
Please call me Alex.
Oh, well, if you think so. No, I was saying, I think you may well be right about Mrs. Waterfield's involvement.
She hardly hides what she thinks of me.
No, that's just to put us off the scent, I'm sure.
Are you?
No, it would be quite possible for a foreign power to have suborned her in some way, and she was rather anxious we shouldn't go to the Mill House, wasn't she?
Why do you suppose that is?
I wouldn't be at all surprised to find some pretty suspicious folk there.
It could just be that they don't change their bedding between guests.
Oh, good heavens, you don't think so?
No, I'll vouch for them. It's a simple place.
Oh, dear.
But it's scrupulously clean. Oh, all right, Prince. Good boy.
Good boy. Down, boy. There's a good boy. Is that Mrs. Waterfield's?
Yes.
I thought so. Pretty fierce-looking animal.
Only because you're strange.
I've often wondered about that, Watson.
Really, Holmes?
You know what I mean. Here we are.
Just as long as Holmes doesn't take over the driving. More of those unpleasant dogs.
You must just bring out the worst in them.
Awful lot of them here.
They breed them.
Ah.
All right. Calm down. That's it. Good evening, Miss Messenger. It's nice to see you again. But in very unusual company. I wouldn't have expected to see Mr. Holmes out here in the wilds.
And how do you know who he is?
Michael used to be a policeman.
Oh, I see.
Yes. I was still in the force at the time of that M1 job, when the container of whiskey got hijacked.
Ah, yes. Oh, you remember this fascinating case, Miss Alex. It all hinged on a balding Welshman with one leg longer than the other.
Very impressive it was. So, your turning up here must mean trouble for some villain.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact.
We're just giving a little assistance to Miss Messenger. What does a former policeman find to do out here?
Look after the dogs. I was a handler, you see.
Oh, are they as fierce as they sound?
Well, they would be if you provoked them.
I shall do no such thing.
Well, they're mainly excellent guard dogs.
There's a lot of mouths to feed. No recent cases of hotel guests disappearing, are there?
Gruesome thought, Holmes.
With respect, Mr. Holmes, you and Dr. Watson would be a bit too tough for them.
Well, that's a comforting thought.
Well, good day to you.
Right, yes.
We can get in through the side door.
A nice chap. I don't much like his dogs, though.
There's no problem, Mrs. Belling. Mrs. Waterfield just doesn't have any rooms free.
In a big place like that? Oh, and it is a bit unusual. You, a single lady, arriving out of the blue with two gentlemen?
Madam, I assure you.
But you have got some rooms.
Well, I think we could find some. But we do usually only take bookings.
What is it, Mother?
Wanting rooms.
At this time of day?
With no bookings.
Oh, good Lord.
Perhaps it might help if we paid in advance, cash.
It might help.
I thought so.
Good.
Over to you then, Watson.
What?
I've only got my credit cards with me. I can't believe they're much use here.
Them nasty plastic things?
Well, will that do?
Just about. We'll see what we can do.
That is a bit unusual.
Really? Well, that was a good meal. I give them that. The pilot didn't get his food poisoning here. But we'll need to keep our ears open tonight.
What for?
Something's afoot here, all right.
Afoot?
All that about a single lady and 2 men. Patent nonsense.
Do you think so?
Oh, yes, they didn't want us here. And that ties in with Mrs. Waterfield not wanting us to come here.
Have you made a reconnaissance of the corridor where our rooms are, Watson?
What?
You know how important knowing every facet of our surroundings is.
By Jove, yes, I'd overlooked that. Well, I must do that at once. If you'll excuse me, Alex.
Good night, Watson.
Good night.
Good night. More coffee?
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I won't join you. After the way the helicopter flight turned out, I'd like an early night.
Miss Messenger, there are a few occasions when logical methods are unable to penetrate to a significant detail of a case. This is one. Therefore, I must risk your anger and ask directly, does Mrs. Waterfield's view of you and the minister have any justification?
None at all.
Thank you.
But I don't know how I can prove that to you.
No need. The truthfulness of an answer is something I've learned to judge.
I hope that means you believe me.
Well, hope is something we should never be without. Please don't let my enjoyment of your company detain you from your well-deserved rest, Miss Messenger.
Alex.
Quite so. Good night.
Holmes!
Morning, Watson.
Bad news, Holmes. I knocked on Alex's door and she's missing from her room.
Yes, I know.
And oh, do you know where she is?
Coming through that clump of trees.
What?
Morning.
Sorry. I hope you haven't been waiting on my account.
Not at all. Just that Watson had mistaken your morning run for an abduction.
I'll join you at breakfast as soon as I've changed.
Oh, extraordinary young woman.
There I agree with you, Watson.
Well, we've drawn a bit of a blank here. Rather to my surprise, I must say. So, what do we do?
Oh, careful, Watson.
I'm all right.
You nearly scratched the Range Rover.
Are you sure you're all right?
Oh, yes, thanks. Damned leather-soled shoes. Oh. Just a moment. Look, I slipped on this. This is brake fluid. Coming from under the Range Rover. Someone's been tampering with these brakes.
Well done, Watson.
Another attempt on the minister's life. Driving down a hill, the brakes suddenly fail, and he's killed in the accident.
With the flat roads of Norfolk, that would be an excruciatingly slow death.
But who could have done it?
The dog said nothing in the night time.
To the brakes?
Excellent, Miss Messenger.
What?
He heard no barking during the night.
Of course. So the dogs knew whoever was prowling out here in the car park.
You might just confirm that friend Michael is missing, Watson, now that he's delayed us. I'll see if I can obtain any alternative transport.
Mr. Holmes, you really try my patience. First the helicopter, and now you drive out to my front door in a tractor.
I'm afraid it was the only vehicle that even Watson's deep wallet could hire for us.
Once I'd paid all the hotel bill.
And what are you doing back here anyway?
Michael, that dog breeder at Mill House, is missing.
What?
Since you have one of the same breed of dog, it seems possible you might be able to tell us something about him.
Very good, Watson.
Thank you, Holmes.
But you forgot to mention about Michael blackmailing Mrs. Waterfield.
What? How did you know that?
If you know where to look, it isn't difficult to discover that you had a conviction for shoplifting before your marriage.
This is all you're doing.
I didn't even know.
Alex, Miss Messenger, was not involved. I learned of it from the same police sources as Michael probably used.
He came here this morning, accusing me of putting you onto him. Eventually I convinced him I had done nothing of the sort. But then he said he couldn't go back to the Mill House anymore, so I had to pay him even more money to get him out of my hair once and for all. And now that's a wasted investment, since you'll tell my husband anyway.
I have no intention of revealing something you've managed to keep secret.
But what about his political confidant here?
I had no interest in hurting the minister. He won't hear about it from me.
But do you mean to say that you have nothing to do with the man following the minister?
Which man?
I told you, Watson, that's not a problem.
Yes.
This is the season for terrorist unpleasantness in London, and the minister's shadow is a special branch man. Not especially competent, since he was never aware that I was following him. But perhaps, fortunately, I have no terrorist inclinations.
So you knew before we left London?
Of course.
Then why did you agree to come here?
Well, you offered me a helicopter ride.
Well,
Now, with that method of transport precluded, could someone offer a means of returning to London that is faster than a tractor?
Holmes, this is jolly decent of you buying me dinner.
Well, you admonish me for neglecting Christmas, Watson, quite rightly.
Well, I wouldn't say any more.
So I'm spreading a little seasonal goodwill, and we felt I owed you an apology, too, for not telling you when I knew about the man following the minister.
We? Someone else joining us?
Just coming, in fact.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm always the last to arrive.
Good Lord.
We can go in and eat, then.
Oh, good, I'm starving.
They do a very good Chateaubriand here.
Just a minute, Holmes.
Yes?
You're apologizing to me and taking a lady to dinner.
Very astute, Watson.
Holmes, are you sure you're feeling all right?
Never felt better, Watson.
That episode of Second Holmes starred Peter Egan as Holmes and Jeremy Nicholas as Watson, with Angela Down as Alex Messenger. Mrs. Waterfield was played by Wendy Murray, Michael by Jim Reed, and Mr. Belling by Stuart Auburn, with Miranda Forbes as Mrs. Belling. Second Holmes was written by Grant Eustace and produced by Paul Mayhew Archer.